So you're playing Genshin, you do a 10 pull, and while you don't get a 5-star, you do get 4-star Gorou. Now, what do you get with Gorou besides Miss Hina's male counterpart? Well, Gorou is a bow-wielding Geo character who, like Sara and Faruzan, their true support potential is locked behind their C6. And in this video, we're going to look at the basics of Gorou. Yes, I am still a little sick. Thank you everybody for your well wishes. But we are going to go ahead and do Gorou's video. I'm not getting in front of the green screen, so please bear with the sound of my sickness for a couple of videos. Thank you. Now, you might notice that I am using Trial Gorou. Yes, I do have Gorou. He is C4, but he's only level like 50, and I'm out of books, so I figured I would just use the Trial Gorou instead of my own, so that way I have all of his passives. So his normal attacks are going to do physical damage, just like normal, and his charge attack is going to have Geo Infusion, where if there is an element on the enemy, it will cause a crystallized reaction, making a crystallized shard, all of that fun stuff with the Geo element. Now, his skill, he is going to do an instance of Geo damage as he plants this flag into the ground. And as you can see, it does have a very clear area that it affects the characters within you. Gorou has arrows going around him. That means that he is now receiving a buff. The way that this buff works is it depends on how many Geo characters are in your party. So if you have one Geo character in your party, it's going to give a defense bonus. If you have two Geo characters, it is going to give interruption resistance. And if you have 3 Geo characters, it is going to give you a Geo damage bonus to your whole team. So if we look at Noelle's stats right now, she has 2,543 defense, and she has a 24% Geo damage bonus. Once we use the skill and we go back to her and we look at her again, she has 2,873 defense and 39 Geo damage. Now that's really all that his skill does, right? It is simply buffing any character within the AoE. Once you step out of it, you lose the buff after being outside of the AoE for a certain amount of time. Now, the skill does last for 10 seconds and its cooldown is 10 seconds, so you do have a permanent uptime with his skill. It also does create energy for Gorou to use his burst. Now, if we use his burst, it's going to do an instance of Geo damage, and it's essentially going to do the same thing as his skill. It's going to plant the flag, but the flag's not going to be planted. It's going to follow you around. If you swap characters, it will stay on the field. It's also going to do an instance of Geo damage every 1.5 seconds, and if that enemy has an element, it's going to cause a crystallized reaction. It's also going to pull that crystallized shard to your on-field member of your team, your on-field character at the time. It's going to pull it to them as well. And then you still get all of the same exact buffs as you get with his skill. Now, you cannot have his skill and his burst up at the same time. If you use his skill and then you use his burst, it will simply destroy the flag from the skill, granting you his burst. And if you have his burst up, you cannot use his E. It just does nothing. Now, his first passive does go with his burst, where after using it, all nearby party members' defense is increased by 25% as well. And then his second passive works with his skill, and his burst is just going to increase the damage each one does based on his defense. So real quick, we're going to go back to Noelle and we're going to look at Noelle's stats again before we actually put up everything on the team. So right now she has 1,132 attack, 2,543 defense, and her Geo damage bonus is going to be 24%. So if we then run through our team of putting up Ningguang's screen, so that way we can run through it later on, dropping Bennett's burst, and then going to Gorou using his burst, going to Noelle, passing through the screen, activating her burst and her skill, you can now see that she has 3,800 attack, 3,000 defense, and then a 51% Geo damage bonus. So you can see that we're using all of this to power up our Noelle, in this particular team, Noelle being our main on-field damage dealer. So Gorou works really well with characters that scale off of defense, like Noelle, Chiori, Ito, and then like Albedo. Now, for artifact sets, the trial character has Husk, which is going to be one of his best. Your other ones are going to be something like Emblem or Noblesse if you don't have another Noblesse user, right? Emblem's going to have you invest heavier into ER, increasing his burst damage, and then Noblesse is going to increase the attack of your entire team if you don't have another Noblesse user. For the main stats, you're most likely going to be doing like a defense or ER Sands, depending on if you need more ER, a Geo damage bonus, and then a crit rate or crit damage circlet, most likely a crit rate specifically because of the weapon most used on him. And that weapon would be Favonius Warbow. This is going to get up ER, which is great because we want to be able to use his burst off of cooldown. And then its passive crit hits have a 60% chance to generate a small amount of elemental particles, which will regenerate 6 energy, which are those extra white particles that you were seeing kind of going around whenever he crit. which is why we want to invest in crit rate. Now this is going to be his best free-to-play weapon, and you get one for free upon completing the Animo Archon quest. So as long as you're not using it on somebody like Yelan or C6 Faruzan, this is phenomenal on him. You can use like Sackbow, but Favonius Warbow is going to be better than Sackbow. And then for the 5-star option, you can use LG if you have it, but most people just use Favonius and R5 Favonius Warbow on Gorou because it is one of his best 4-star, his best free-to-play, and it's very, very good on him. Now, at the beginning, I did talk about how his true support potential is locked behind his C6, so let's look at his constellations. His C1, when a character other than Gorou within the AoE of his skill or his burst deals geo damage to opponents, the cooldown of his skill is decreased by 2 seconds. Number 2 is while General's Glory, which is his buffing mechanic, is in effect, its duration is going to be extended by 1 second when an active nearby character obtains an elemental shard from the crystallized reaction. Now, during his burst, it sucks it into you. During his skill, it doesn't. So during his skill, collect them. During his burst, you don't have to worry about collecting them. Your third constellation is going to increase the level of his skill like normal. Number 4, when his buffing mechanic is in place in the impregnable and crunch states, that means 2 geo characters or 3 geo characters, it will also heal active characters within the AoE by 50% of his defense every 1.5 seconds. So at this time of having this constellation, you definitely want to try and run a defense sand over ER, and having Husk on him is going to be very, very good because it's going to increase the amount of healing that this does. Number 5 is going to increase the level of his burst. Number 6, after using his skill or his burst, it's going to increase the crit damage of all nearby party members' Geo, specifically Geo, based on the buff level of the skill field at the time. So if you have 1 Geo character, it's going to get 10%, 2 Geo characters, 20%, 3 Geo characters, 40%. It's going to give an extra 40% Geo crit damage to your on-field character if you have 3 Geo characters in your party, which is really, really good, which is why I said that it's like Sara or Faruzan, where his true buffing potential is locked behind a C6. It's not as much crit damage as Sara or Faruzan, but it is still really, really good, especially for characters that scale on defense because of the defense buff that you're going to get from the rest of his kit. Now, because it is all geo damage and defense damage, it does kind of limit what teams you can run him in, right? You can definitely run him with like Ito, you can run him with like C6 Chiori, you can run him with Albedo, you can run him with Noelle. A team of like C6 Noelle, C6 Gorou, Shilinen, and Farina is insane because of the synergy between Noelle and Farina. It's a really, really good team, and Noelle loves that defense boost that you're going to get from Gorou and the geo crit damage. So they work together really, really well. And as you see right now, I'm actually running a Chiori, Gorou, Shilinen, and Benny team behind me. Now my Chiori is only C0 R1, my Gorou is only C4, but I figured why not, let's just see what we can get. And Chiori was actually able to hit 250k, so not too bad. We're kind of just throwing it in there and seeing what she could do. Chiori does love the attack buff from Benny and the defense buff from Gorou, so that works really, really well together. Now that is going to be it for this video. Kuki has green hair, I have green hair, and I'll see you in the next one.